I'm Blaque Dynamite, and I'm a drummer. Just eager to get out a different message, a lighter message of experimentation and creativity with people. Studied jazz at a really early age, then got into metal, then got into R&B, and got into hip hop, and got into electronic music, and got into production, and got into dance music, and it just goes on and on and on. I try to reflect that in the music that I play. My goal as a musical communicator is to share that other message, the newer message of not everything has to be a competition, not everything has to be one thing, not everything has to be just metal, just R&B, just hip hop, or just anything, because it could have elements of everything. Booker T. Washington, HSPVA, was a huge focal point for my life. A lot of cats came through that program. You have Roy Hargrove, Erykah Badu, Norah Jones, Sean Martin, Spud Seawright, a really crazy lineage of musicians that, fortunately, I got a piece of the same system with the same teachers. So we have the same mentality of how we just create and just build with people. This is a DW collector series, Purpleheart, Iron Man, Sparkle drum set. I ended up with this amazing gift from DW because I walked around with Don Lombardi, who was one of the founders for the company. He took me to this place called Candyland, which is basically the DW showroom. And I saw this piece of wood that was just sitting in a corner, and it was a natural color purple. And he told me that this was a thing that they were working on called Purpleheart. And he let me play one of the snare drums. And I was kind of blown away just by the projection and the sensitivity to the drum. And it was a smaller snare drum too, so for it to have such a massive sound, I wanted to have a whole drum set like that. This is a really sick snare because it's not the normal size of a depth. It's actually a 14 by 7.5. So it's not as obnoxious as a 14 by 8, but it also gives you way more of a beat than the average 7-inch depth. And also it has the lugs that are separate versus most lugs on DW snares are they're single lugs. So you get a bit more, for me, I get a bigger tuning range. DW is particularly really great for having a real textural sound to their drums because they actually tune their shells. So if you tune to those notes that they're designed for, those are probably going to be some of the more powerful tones that you will get out of the drum. I don't like to feel like I have to fight a drum set to get a sound out, and I don't want to feel like I have to overcompensate to get more sound or get less sound. It's a pretty natural feeling kit for the amount of dexterity that I try to exert when I'm playing. A lot of the sound that I choose to get from my kit is reminiscent of a lot of those old records that I would listen to. And most of those people, me coming from church, had an 8-inch tom, but me loving the Marvin Gaye and Sam Cooke kind of old school drum sounds, I like to also have bigger drums and flatter sounding drums. I really enjoy a great metal band. So me having a 23-inch bass drum instead of a 20 or a 22, something a little bit more traditional, helps me carry out that big punch that I'm always looking for. The heads that I choose are Remo drum heads, the most durable heads in the world for me personally. I have a wide range of music that I try to go through, and sometimes I have to really beat the mess out of my drums. And these heads always really stay consistent. I play a double ply Black Suede Emperor on my rack toms, and on a couple of my floor toms I play a power stroke or clear power stroke 4. And for certain things, for those Black Suede heads, more of a warmer sound, so I use it on my deep snare drum and the bigger floor toms. And on my smaller floor toms, I like more of a pop, so I decided to use the P4s on the 14 and the 15. I use Power Stroke 3 on my bass drum because it won't, break. And on my main snare drum, I use a CS control sound coated, this reverse dot. And I use all clear diplomats on the bottom. It's a little bit thinner head than the average Ambassador because I like the resonance. The floor tom snare drum on the stomp, I use Hazy Emperor. My cymbal setup is all Zildjian cymbals. Some are in stock, like these 8 customs, and some are a little bit more custom made just for me specifically. Coming from, the lineage of like a Tony Williams or Elvin Jones, where for us, your ride cymbal or your cymbal sound is a very specific thing that when people hear on multiple records that you may have with different people, they recognize you're playing immediately. So for me, choosing cymbals like these, like the Gong Sheet and this prototype K cluster ride, and even this Crash of Doom with holes that it's not necessarily out or specific for everybody, but it's something that I resonate with, that people hear and they notice, and when they see it, they recognize a personality with the gear that they see. And the sticks that I use are mine. They're my Blaque Dynamite sticks by Vic Firth. They're based off of a 5/8 grip. And for me, I sweat a lot when I play, so I needed a stick that wouldn't fly out of my hands. So they took the lacquer off, so it's a completely dry stick, raw stick, and the tip is a nylon tip, but instead of it being a white coat, it's a black coat, so it's a little bit less high-end than the average nylon tip, but it's more high-end than the wood tip, so it's like right in the middle. And for me, like wanting to do swift swing or anything like too notey, it brings out all the notes. This pad is really, really sick. So I wanted to input some of the 808s and weird glitchy sounds that I wanted to have along with my acoustic drum set. When I look at my kit, I kind of break it up as if it's a band itself. Like I link my bass drum up to the bass player. My right hand is like maybe the lead synth player or the lead line player, like a horn player for the melodic line. And then I consider my left hand as like a piano player where you accompany people's solos or where the conversational piece comes in. And then when I play together, I try to hone in on different parts of the band depending on their part. So depending on what the bass player is playing or depending on what the piano player is playing, that's my limb-to-limb job to match each person. My goal that I'm trying to work on is just being able to play the way I would normally would play in the vein of Billy Cobham or Tony Williams or Dennis Chambers, but still try to sing like Marvin Gaye or Sam Cooke. Only because I'm really into both sides. I love beautiful melodic structure, but also I love the flash of a really sporty drummer. I've gotten labeled thrash R&B. I've gotten labeled modern rock. I've gotten labeled prog gospel. I've gotten labeled space gospel. More so it's just an obscure way of people trying to call it something new and different and hopefully surprising. I make music because I love that energy that it gives out to people, and I love receiving that energy back. I want to be able to play for anyone and everybody, and everyone get that feeling of like there's another space that you can be in, like a happier space.